And this is Samson Part 2. So we've been looking at these characters, and last time we were in Samson Part 1. So this is Samson's vengeance. And Samson is a real loose cannon. He's got stuff going on all the time, and he has enormous talent and ability, but it's all very misguided. He's so impetuous. He just decides on the spur of the moment to do whatever he wants, and it gets him into a lot of trouble. So I'm going to read the entirety of Judges chapter 15. It's not too long of a chapter, and then we'll turn our attention to the question sheet. Judges 15. But after a while, in the time of wheat harvest, Samson visited his wife with a young goat and said, "I will go into my wife in her room." But her father did not let him enter. Her father said, "I really thought that you hated her intensely, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please let her be yours instead." Samson then said to them, "This time I shall be blameless in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm." Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took torches and turned the foxes tail to tail, and put one torch in the middle between the two tails. When he had set fire to the torches, he released the foxes into the standing grain of the Philistines, thus burning up both the shocks and the standing grain, along with the vineyards and groves. Then the Philistines said, "Who did this?" And they said, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he took his wife and gave her to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. Samson said to them, "Since you act like this, I will surely take revenge on you, but after that I will quit." He struck them ruthlessly with a great slaughter, and he went down and lived in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Then the Philistines went up and camped in Judah and spread out in Lehi. The men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" And they said, "We have come up to bind Samson in order to do to him as he did to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us?" And he said to them, "As they did to me, so I have done to them." They said to him, "We have come down to bind you so that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." And Samson said to them, "Swear to me that you will not kill me." So they said to him, "No, but we will bind you fast and give you into their hands, yet surely we will not kill you." Then they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted as they met him, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that the ropes that were on his arms were as flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds dropped from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, so he reached out and took it and killed 1,000 men with it. Then Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have killed 1,000 men." When he had finished speaking, he threw the jawbone from his hand, and he named that place Ramoth Lehi. Then he became very thirsty, and he called to the Lord and said, "You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" But God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, so that water came out of it. When he drank, his strength returned, and he revived. Therefore he named it En-Hakor, which is in Lehi to this day. So he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. All right, so on our question sheet, Judges 15, this is Bible Character Study number 35, Samson Part 2, page 224 at the bottom of the sheet. And here's question number 1. Some time has passed, and Samson has apparently cooled off since he was tricked at his wedding. What happened when he went to visit his wife in Timnah? He learned that his wife had been given to another. Her father offered him her younger sister, and this was not pleasing to Samson. And so, number 2, what did he do in retaliation? He caught 300 foxes, tied them together with torches, and let them go into the Philistines' standing grain, stacked grain that's called shocks, vineyards, and olive groves. It's probable that the animals in question were jackals rather than foxes. The Hebrew word means burrower, and jackals are more common in the area than foxes. In either case, Samson definitely had to be fast, agile, and clever to catch them. So when we think of Samson, we often think of tremendous strength, this supernatural strength that he had. But it wasn't just brute strength. He had agility, stamina, other athletic attributes as well. Number 3, Samson's vengeance did massive damage to the Philistines' food supply. He had burned large amounts of just harvested wheat, what was used for bread, which was the main part of every meal in the ancient Middle East, the wheat yet to be harvested, and the grape vineyards and olive groves. Olive oil was a crucial product for multiple things. How did the Philistines retaliate? They burned Samson's wife and her father with fire. So they killed them. Horrible, just absolutely brutal. Number 4, what was Samson's vengeance for this? He struck them ruthlessly with a great slaughter. Ruthlessly is literally hip and thigh, or to paraphrase, he tore them limb from limb. Yikes. This was gruesome, gory, brutal. And we don't know how many this is, but very easily a large number of Philistines. Number 5, how did the Philistines escalate the conflict? They went up and camped in Judah and spread out in Lehi. In other words, they summoned the army and pitched their tents by the Judahite town of Lehi, since presumably they had heard that Samson had taken refuge nearby. Number 6, did the men of Judah call on Samson to lead them into battle against their wicked oppressors? No, not quite. They came with 3,000 men to bind Samson, to give him into the hands of the Philistines. So they were not looking for him to lead them at all. They're looking to turn him over. They're saying, you're the cause of our troubles. Don't you understand? The Philistines are our masters, and you've stirred up all this trouble. So we're not going to kill you, but we're going to tie you up and hand you to them. They'll kill you. So they're not going to kill their own kinsman, but they are going to turn him over, and hopefully they're thinking the Philistines will just go away and leave us alone. They won't burn us up. So paraphrase number 7, Samson's answer to the men of Judah. What did he say? He said, I'm doing to them what they've done to me. He's saying tit for tat. So they did this to my family, to my wife, and so I'm doing to them what they've done to me. Number 8, what happened when the Israelites brought Samson to the Philistines in Lehi? The Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, so that the ropes binding his arms became like burnt flax. So, think of cotton twine that you have lit and it's burned up and it's just ash. So that's how easily he just, the ropes just kind of fell off of him. Number 9, what weapon did Samson find? A fresh jawbone of a donkey. Note that the Philistine soldiers had swords and shields. They had superior metallurgy technology at this time, and we find out later that they guarded this monopoly by forbidding Israelites from having their own blacksmiths. So the Philistines actually have steel weapons and pretty good shields, and he has just picked up the jawbone of a donkey, and that's what he's got as his only weapon. But he is going to go fight them. Number 10, what did he do with it? He killed 1,000 men. And these are not just men, but these are soldiers with armor and equipment. Now think about this. Not only did God grant supernatural strength to Samson, he also gave him divine endurance. Even the best trained and most physically fit soldiers and martial artists can only last for a few minutes in intense hand-to-hand combat before their strength is spent. So think of an old movie where they have a sword fight. And the sword fight goes on for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 15 minutes, and they're riposting back and forth and charging around. In real life, you can't do that. If you are holding a weapon out and you're defending your life, you burn up all your calories in like 7 minutes. Even the most fit individual, it's just impossible to carry on a hand-to-hand combat fight. for more than a few minutes without just absolutely being drained. It would appear logically here that God gave Samson not only supernatural strength, but the endurance to go on fighting for what would probably be quite a while, with the jawbone of a donkey against armed, trained soldiers. Not only did he have this great strength and agility, but he had stamina at this point from God to just keep on fighting. And so he used the jawbone of a donkey to kill 1,000 men. That is, if it weren't recorded in the Bible that we know is true, it would be unbelievable. Number 11, after Samson made an eloquent and arrogant utterance, the Hebrew word heap sounds like the word for donkey, and hurled away the jawbone, he was understandably desperately thirsty. What did he pray? You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? So he says, I am so thirsty. And Samson could be a little dramatic, but it appears real because God actually did intervene. God actually did miraculously step in. Number 12, God split the hollow place in Lehi so that water came out of it. So there's a little dell or a little declivity in the ground, and God just opened it up miraculously, and there's a spring of water coming out of it, and Samson could drink all he needed. So he was dehydrated, dangerously dehydrated, and God provided for him. Now this is interesting because in the stories in Judges, we fixate on these dramatic scenes where Samson is fighting with the Philistines. But actually in verse 20, how many years did Samson judge Israel? That's question 13. 20. 20 years. So again, remember that the term judge can be used in two ways in this context. One can be to act as kind of an administrator. So people come to him and say, I have a problem, my neighbor and I aren't getting along, can you help square it away? Another way that the word judge gets used is as a military commander. It's hard to see Samson as an administrator. He is just so impetuous. The only thing he thinks about is what he wants next. So it's difficult to see him that way. But it does say that he was the leader of the Israelites for 20 years. So it's possible that the stories we have of Samson fighting against the Philistines are just the tip of the iceberg, the most interesting, dramatic stories, and there are many, many others that didn't get written down in the Bible. So now we're in Judges chapter 16. If the narrator ordered events strictly chronologically, which is not always the case, then assuming Samson was about 20 years old during his wedding and the back and forth events afterward, chapters 14 and 15, he is now about 40 years old. Did the Philistines give up trying to get revenge after Samson killed 1,000 of their soldiers without human assistance? No. Did the cycle of violence continue off and on for 20 years, and the narrator has divinely chosen to leave these events unrecorded? We're not told. So that's kind of what we just discussed, that he might have been a leader in some sense. He was a leader in some sense for those 20 years. The next story, question 14, which occurs in Gaza, a major Philistine city far south from Samson's hometown, is brief and unusual. Does it seem as if Samson has grown spiritually from when he was a young man? In verse 1, he sees a prostitute, and he says, I'm going to go visit her. He has not matured. He has not grown. He is not an honorable man. He's not showing signs of spiritual growth. He's still driven by desires. Whatever he sees, he wants. So it's kind of sad, isn't it? Because he could have been a great man. He could have done something really great for God, but he wasted all of his resources. Number 15, how does Samson evade capture? Well, at midnight, he arose and took hold of the city gate, pulled up the post, put them on his shoulders, and carried them up to the hill opposite Hebron. So once again, this is, if it were not recorded in the Bible, and we know the Bible is true because God has told us the actual historical facts. If it were not recorded in the Bible, we would say, nobody can do that. The gate of a city is usually two leaves, two doors. They're substantial because you have to get wagons through it. So, together they could be 10 feet wide, and they're made out of heavy timber. And the posts are the beams that are driven down into the ground. They might have rock reinforcement around them so they don't tip over. But rather than just, go out the gate, he takes the gate with him. He takes the whole assembly, the whole structure. He just lifts it out of the ground. We're probably talking at least hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. But that's not even the main thing. He takes them to Hebron. From Gaza to Hebron is 38 miles with carrying, this wooden gate and post on his shoulders. Wow. So this is not ordinary human behavior. Humans can't do this. God gives Samson his strength. God is the source of the supernatural strength. So in this story, it is interesting, God is not mentioned not even one time. And why do you think that God is not mentioned in this scene in Gaza at all? Probably it has to do with the way it started in verse 1. He went to visit a prostitute. God is not blessing him. God is not in on this. Even though he has supernatural strength, Samson is not following God's path. Samson is not seeking the blessing of the Lord. He has these amazing abilities from the Lord, but he's just abusing them. And so, God is not in this scene because God is not really in Samson's life. That's probably why. Number 17, sometime later, Samson fell in love with yet another woman, Delilah, in the northern Philistine valley of Sorek. Her name probably means of the night. The Philistine lords offered her incredible wealth to entice Samson into revealing the source of his supernatural strength. Did Samson flee when Delilah asked how he might be bound and afflicted? No. So Samson is not stupid, but he seems to be willfully dumb. Yeah, willfully stupid, something like that. Back in chapter 15, the little song or poem that he made up, in Hebrew, it's actually very clever. Remember early on at his wedding, he told a riddle? He's a smart guy. He's not stupid. He's clever. But when his girlfriend, Delilah, says, oh, Samson, honey, if people were going to kill you and they wanted to tie you up, how would they do that? yeah, and so he goes through this rigmarole and he says, oh, well, certain kind of cords, if you do this, then I'm just like any other man. And then here's the kicker. In the room next door, in the room next to their bedroom, there's a bunch of Philistines hiding out. And so she hollers, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And they rush out and come in the room, and he bursts all the ropes. Well, after the first time, don't you think that he would say, I don't think I trust you. But he continues to play the game. Wow. What a misuse of resources. I guess there probably is a word, a biblical word that would apply. He's a fool. He is willfully choosing to go down the wrong path, and he won't take any correction. He won't be challenged. He won't allow growth to happen in his life. And so, I forget how many times that Delilah tricks him. I think it's at least 4. And each time, did you notice, he gets a little closer to the truth? Say, well, if you do this with my hair, you put 7 combs in my hair. And he's getting closer and closer to the reality. Let's see, number 18, thank you. The cycle that follows is very repetitive in the original Hebrew, so they go through the same rigmarole over and over again. Does Samson seem to be taking this threat seriously? No, not at all. 19, Samson may be physically strong, but his weakness is women. As before his bride's emotional manipulation and verbal pressure back in chapter 14, Samson fell to Delilah's daily pressure, the same Hebrew word is used, and told her the truth about his Nazirite origin. So what's Nazirite again? What is a Nazirite? It's a vow that an individual takes saying, I belong only to God. And God gave rules for it. Back in the book of Exodus, Deuteronomy, God said, well, here's the rules for that. When you take a vow, when you belong just to me, you're not allowed to get near a dead body, nothing dead. You're not allowed to cut your hair. You're not allowed to have wine or a strong drink of any kind. And there are other rules. So incidentally, Samson has violated most of them. But his hair is long. He has never cut his hair. And it seems that never shaving his head was the only Nazirite rule he followed consistently. So here's a good question now. Was the source of his incredible strength in his magic long hair? No. God is the source of strength. There's nothing magic about his hair. It's just an indication that he has kept that part of his vow. That's all it is. This is not like Rapunzel or something or other. This is not magic in the hair. This is God gave supernatural strength to Samson, but it's not in the hair. However, what follows, the next scene, because his hair began growing again, he would have come into compliance with at least that part of his Nazirite vow after his hair had grown out again. So, number 20, they capture him. Remember what they did to him? They bound him, cut his hair, and they blinded him. They put his eyes out. And they put him in prison, and he's going to grind the grain. We don't know if that was with a mortar and pestle. Sunday school lesson material has him pushing a grist mill, a stone, pushing it around and around. And that's possible that that's what it was. But that's what he does now. He grinds grain for the prison of the Philistines. And he's blind. He has no sight. They gouged out his eyes. So apparently some time has gone by. That's the implication, number 20. How did the Philistines celebrate their capture, subduing, blinding, and humiliation of Samson? They assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, to rejoice, and they called for Samson from the prison to amuse them. So it's like a court jester. And they're going to humiliate him and maybe throw food at him and make jokes about him in their banquet hall. This is a huge, huge temple. It holds at least 5,000 people, and it's open overhead and balconies all the way around. And they're bringing Samson in so they can jeer and laugh at him and see, he caused such trouble for them, killing thousands of Philistines, destroying their crops, and now they think that they have got the hero, and they've subdued him, they've humiliated him, now they're going to make fun of him. And so this is amusing to them. So they bring him in, and remember there's a little boy who's leading Samson in, and he says, take me to where the central pillars of the house are. I'm tired, I need to lean against it. And so the boy does, leads him to the central pillars, kind of the keystone of the whole building. And number 21, what was Samson's final prayer? O Lord Yahweh, please remember me and please strengthen me just this time, O God, that I may be avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. So in some sense, would you say, based on this, that Samson had a relationship with God? Yes. Yeah, and I think it's very clear. But even in this prayer, what is Samson thinking about? What is the crux of the thing as far as Samson is concerned? Himself. I want revenge because they treated me bad. And I don't care if I die too, I'm going to take a bunch of them with me. Now, behind the scenes, God is in fact using Samson to deal with the Philistines and to hold them back. So God, in his sovereignty, is in fact using Samson, but that doesn't mean that Samson is an honorable instrument. He's not. So in this last prayer, he says, Lord, just this one time, give me strength. And evidently, the Bible even notes that his hair had begun to grow again. And so he calls out to God. God grants the strength for this last time, and he does indeed pull the pillars down. The roof collapses, and it says that he killed more Philistines in his death than he had in his entire life. So, like with many of the judges in the book of Judges, Samson is kind of a disappointing story. It's not necessarily a really uplifting story. We can learn a lot from negative features and not really positive ones. So what are some things that we can learn from Samson? We shouldn't take our own vengeance. That is forbidden to us. We don't revenge. We don't take vengeance on others for how they've treated us. And what else? Janice.
It seems towards the end that even though he had been a huge disappointment in self, concern about self and what he wanted, in the last of it, he was calling out to God and God had mercy on him and gave him the strength he needed.
Yes. Yes. So God certainly did use him, and he did have a relationship with God. So I'm very, very confident when we get to heaven, we will meet Samson. So he did know the Lord, but a disappointing life. Carl.
God has given each of us talents and abilities, and we honest about Samson, but we're to handle them with care and use them in the purposes to glorify God.
Amen.
And help each other.
Yep. So the use of resources, talents, assets to glorify God and not just live for self, not just use whatever we've got for ourselves, but to use it for God. Amen. Anybody else? Take your prayer bulletins, please.